Hey everybody, it's Maureen, and recently I heard of a product called Kitta, K-I-T-T-A, and it's basically washi strips in a little matchbook style case, and I posted about it in one of my Facebook groups, and apparently I was mistaken as to how it actually came, because I don't have them. I didn't order any. But when I heard washi strips and I saw the picture, I mistakenly thought they were washi strips on plastic sheeting in the matchbook, and they're actually not. But I'd already figured out at that point that I wanted to try and make some of my own with all the washi tape that I have, because I have a ton. So this is what I came up with. It's a little matchbook style book. And it's got these little plastic sheets that have actual washi tape on them. And they're cut into 1.5 inch strips, which is perfect for like Erin Condren or Happy Planner or anything you want to use it for. And you can customize this to be any width that you want. So if you're using something smaller like a Hobonichi weeks or something like that, you can actually cut them smaller. And then when you're ready to use it, you just peel the washi right off of the plastic and then put it down in your planner or whatever you're decorating. So it's a really handy way to carry around a little bit of washi. You don't even need a scissors because it's all pre-cut, unless you want to cut it to different lengths. Once you put it in your planner, then you can use a craft knife or a scissors or whatever. But it's nice and flat, so that'll fit in your planner. And I just think it's really, really cute, and that's why I wanted to make it. So let me show you how I made these, and let's get started. Okay, so let me start with the materials that you're going to need for your washi strip matchbooks. The first thing I have is the plastic that I actually put the washi on, and you can use like overhead projector transparencies. There's like plastic tablets, plastic sheet tablets you can get from Amazon. There's a brand called Duralar, which actually has acid-free plastic sheeting, and that would be nice if you're not going to use your washi right away. It might be nice to have it on an acid-free surface. What I'm actually using today is just laminating pouches. These are the 3 mil thickness, and they're kind of flimsy, but I think they are sturdy enough for what we're doing. The original books that I made to begin with, when I was sort of testing this idea out, I used 5 mil. So that's a little more sturdy. But use what you have. I wouldn't suggest going out and buying anything special for this unless you absolutely have nothing that you can use. But look around your house and see what kind of plastic sheeting you have. You want it to be at least sturdy enough that it's gonna stay kind of straight and flat to hold the washi strips. But you don't want something super thick. Like 10 mil laminating would be really thick, and it would make your matchbook really thick. So yeah, today I'm using the 3 mil, and you can kind of see how that's a little bit thin, but it's still solid enough to handle the washi. And then I have a piece of cardstock that I make the outside of the matchbooks with, the actual matchbook itself. This is just a thin cardstock from Walmart. It's the Georgia Pacific brand Walmart cardstock. Not Walmart. It's not specific to Walmart, but I get it from Walmart in a pack. I think it's 250 sheets for something like $6 or $7. So really affordable. If you want, you can use colored cardstock, pattern cardstock, whatever you want. This is kind of lightweight. If you want something a little more sturdy, then get something a little heavier, but it's totally up to you again. And then I have a piece of graph paper here. That's just if you want to make sure your strips are really straight and even on your plastic. It's totally not necessary. You can eyeball whether or not it's straight. Then I'm using a scoreboard, which again is not totally necessary. You can fold this is for making the score lines, the fold lines for the matchbook itself. You can totally just fold it with your hands. You don't need to score before folding. But it's really kind of necessary to have a paper trimmer. This is my Fiskars paper trimmer. And then I used a stapler. When I first did my original kind of prototypes, I just used double-sided adhesive, but I found that it was coming unstuck. So I ended up using a stapler, and this is a long reach stapler. You can see how the kind of, I don't know, top part swivels out so you can do long reach, and I would kind of recommend that because the books are kind of tall and don't necessarily fit in a regular length of the stapler. But again, up to you. And then of course you're going to need your washi tapes. These two are from Simply Gilded, and these two are from 1 Ton in a Million, and I'm going to make a sort of autumn washi booklet. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, let me clear up my space a little bit. The first thing we want to do is put down the strips on the plastic, and I'll show you how I use the graph paper guide with it. But again, totally not necessary. So what I do is I just get the graph paper and the plastic, and I line it up on this edge and then the top edge to make sure that it's straight to the plastic, and then I just use these big old paper clips to put it down. And you want to do it on the sides, not on the top, because you're actually going to be putting your washi on the top. And the reason why I put it on this edge instead of the left edge is because my washi actually comes out this direction, and so I'm going to want to start it, if I want to do it straight, I'm going to start it on this side. So all you do is you roll out your washi a little bit, figure out where you're going to start it, and I like to start it kind of close to the top. I don't want to do it too far down, otherwise there will be wasted space up at the top, and I don't want to waste any of that plastic. So what you do is you just roll out your washi, and then you can use the graph paper as a guide to keep it straight. So I just roll out a little bit and go according to the graph paper. And then if you want to, when you get to this end and you can see that the graph paper doesn't reach this far, you can actually scoot your graph paper over if you want to make sure it's absolutely straight. But that's really not necessary. Oh, and then another thing you're going to need is a scissors. These are my dirty old Cutter Bee scissors. And then I just cut it off right at the acetate, or the laminating film. So you just do that. And then one thing I would suggest too is before you start laying down your washi is you kind of stack them up and see what you would like the order to be. It doesn't really matter, but it kind of does in the way that when I made these, I sort of meant them to be nice to look at as well as use. And so I kind of wanted them in a certain order that was pleasing to the eye and maybe would give me ideas when I'm actually using the washi, how I want to put down the washi, and you know, if there's a certain order. But again, totally optional. I went through this stack and I decided that I really like this setup. And then of course, if you don't care about it being super straight, or you think you can eyeball it really well, go ahead and do that. So you're just going to need to do that. And what I did was I left a little bit hanging off the edge because I don't want to make the strips shorter than the size I'm making them, which is the 1.5 inches, which is perfect for an Erin Condren or a Happy Planner. It's also perfect for traveler's notebook inserts and you know, whatever you're using. If you're using something like a Hobonichi, depending on which one you're using, the cousin, the original, the Weeks, you can measure it, measure your Hobonichi or whatever planner you're using or whatever you're decorating, and make them specific to whatever you're using. For instance, I have a Hobonichi cousin, and the monthly and weekly view are shorter than 1.5 inches, but then I'm actually using 1.5 inch strips in the daily view. So I can actually make both those sizes if I want to. So again, when I get to the end, I'm just going to take my scissors and cut that off at the acetate. And oops, I cut into the acetate a little bit. You don't want to do that because then your strips are going to come out different sized. So in case you don't know, the I keep calling it acetate, sorry. The laminating film comes in 9 by 12 sheets. So to make it into 1.5 inch strips is actually really perfect because it comes out to an even number, 6. You get 6 strips out of the width of the sheet. So you just go through and do all those, all the washi you want onto it, and I'm not going to keep going. I'm just going to cut this and I'll be back with it done for the next step. Okay, so these are all 4 of my washi tapes, and the 110 in a million tape actually came off the roll in the other direction, so I have a little overhang over here on this side, and then I didn't cut it flush with the plastic on this side yet. So that's actually your next step, is I would turn it over. And be careful because you can cut right into that plastic, but I turn it over to use it as a guide to cut the ends flush with the plastic. So you just do that, and that is your finished sheet. So the next thing we do is get out our paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut my acetate off in this direction. I want to leave at least 1/2 inch, probably just a little bit more, like maybe 5/8 of an inch, because I'm going to need a little blank space to staple into my matchbook. So I'm going to cut it off right there. And then this you save, of course, and you can put your next round of strips on it and just keep going until you get to the end. In the alternative, if you want to cut it all at once, you can lay down your washi all at once. Just make sure you leave a gap between the different sets so that you have room to put it in your matchbook. And then once I have this, I'm going to cut it into my 1.5 inch strips. So I'm just going to line it up on my paper cutter and do the 1.5 inch strips. And of course you can do this however you want. You can cut them into 3, 6, and 9 3-inch pieces and then cut them in half, or you can just cut them into the 1.5 strips. You want to be very careful because if you cut them wrong, you're not going to get the 6 strips out of that sheet. And then I did it wrong. I wasn't paying attention. You see how this one is so much bigger than the rest? That is actually 2 inches. And so I did exactly what I said not to do, and I am left with a little bit here that's not 1.5, and then I have to trim this one down. So yeah, be careful with your measuring and your lining up, because you don't want to do this and end up with waste strips. That's fine. I still have 5 of these strips left, and they're really cute. The other thing I want to mention is if you have a specific pattern on your washi and you want it to lay in your strip a certain way, you can actually put down a ruler next to your washi as you're laying it down and check for the 1.5 inch strips, and kind of, if you want to, you can cut up the washi and put them in specific places on your strip. Or what I could have done with this one is if I want this 1 ton in a million designs to line up maybe like right in the middle of the strip, I would not put that strip of washi down, and then I would cut them into my 1.5 inch strips, and then take my washi and lay it down on this how I want them to line up, so that I would have, you know, a dim sum in the very center of each strip. So you can do this a number of ways. And then when you have these strips, if you want to round the corners with a corner rounder, go ahead and do that now. The corners can be a little sharp, but because this is the 3 mil, it's not too bad. The 5 mil corners were pretty sharp, so I actually ended up rounding those. So I want to cut my cardstock 1.5 inches plus a little bit more, maybe like 1/8 more, so that it has some room to wiggle around in your matchbook. So I have that strip, and then I'm not going to cut it in the other direction yet because I'm not sure how much of that cardstock I'm going to need. So I'm going to get out my scoreboard, and what I'm going to do is line up my cardstock on my scoreboard, and I'm going to score at 1/2 inch, and then at the next line right after that, which is 1/16 of an inch, so that I give the strips room to lay in there. Then what I'm going to do is take one of my strips and line it up so that the bottom of the strip goes down in the center of those 2 score lines, because this is, I'm going to score for my height, and then I'm going to pick a line above the top of that plastic. You don't want it too far above, but you definitely want it to clear the plastic, otherwise when you fold the matchbook shut, it's not going to fit. And then what I'm going to do is, and you can actually do this with just your scissors, you don't need the paper trimmer. You can just cut that off. Sorry, I have those little washi strips still on my scissors. So what you're going to want is, for the top flap, you want it to fit underneath the little flap here, but you don't want it to go too far. So let me show you that. You want it to be about maybe halfway down the length of that. So I'm going to cut it right here. And of course you can use your paper trimmer if you want to make sure it's straight, or you can just do like I did with the scissors. So this is basically your matchbook here. Now I'm going to get my 5 strips, and I'm going to line them up carefully, and I'm going to stick them into the little flap. And if you want to put a little bit of adhesive in there, that's totally fine. But what I'm going to do is just hold it. I'm going to get my stapler out and turn it so I can do the long reach stapling, because I'm going to want to staple this way, and I'm going to put my book down. And actually this would be easier if I kind of clip them together so they don't move around. And I'm going to put that, I'm not going to staple this way, which would be, you know, you don't need the long reach stapler, because then you're going to have the backs of the staples on the outside of the matchbook, and I don't want that. So I'm going to open it, but I'm going to make sure that that edge is lined up with that bottom part. And then if you want, you can put a paper clip here too to hold this together, and just double check it and make sure that's holding. And then you want to move the clip out of the way so that it can actually staple. And I'm going to put it in my stapler, and I'm going to want to staple kind of in the center near the bottom. And it doesn't matter too much if it's like super straight or super centered or anything like that. The thing you do want to be careful of though is that when you close it up, your strips still fit. If you get it a little crooked, if you get the acetate, not acetate, if you get the plastic strips crooked to the matchbook, it might not fit within the sides. But that's why we make it a little bit wider so that it'll fit. And then I can go ahead and take off my paper clips. And then you can see in the back, the ends of the staple are kind of sticking up. So what I like to do is I like to get something and kind of smash them down, and it's a little bit difficult because they want to scoot around, but I kind of just smash them down so that they don't make a big lump or poke through the back of the matchbook. And that is basically it. You stick your flap under there and you have your little matchbook. And then what I would like to do for the front cover is so I kind of know what's going on, what patterns are in the inside. I could either have written like fall assortment, or I can just go ahead and put some washi on there to show that this is what's inside this matchbook. So let me show you a couple others that I did. Actually, the other three that I did were using the subscription boxes. So this was the October box that I just got. And like I said, this is using the 5mm laminating sheet. So you can kind of tell. Oh wait, that was 2. You can kind of tell how that's a little bit thicker than this. Maybe you can't, but anyway. So yeah, that's the October one, and then this was the September Rockstars box, and this was August French Lavender Fields. Yeah, that's right, not French. Lavender Fields. So yeah, it's a really neat way to put together your sub-box washis, or you can totally make your own assortments like I did here and mix and match different washi companies. But like I said, if you want them to all be the same height, because you can see how these are all different, you might want to pre-cut your acetate. Like I said, instead of putting down your washi first and then trimming off the acetate, I would cut the acetate, you know, into 4-inch pieces or whatever length you want them all to be, and then put my washi on accordingly, and making sure I leave that, you know, 1/2 inch at the bottom. And so that's it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.